Good afternoon, YouTube. Farhad Targaryen here. I'm joined by a guest for a bonus episode of reviewing on the podcast. We are joined by Podrew, as we used to go by. Podrew, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing well, Farhad Targaryen. I still go by Podrew over on the Brooklyn Rebound Network podcast. That it's a little sporadically released these days, but yeah, I'm more into the YouTube game now. But yeah, Drew Podrew is how the listeners can address me.
Yeah, you're kind of an expert at this thing compared to me, anyway. So I'll
Yeah, that's
I'll
quite a yeah. That's the important part in the fine print compared to you.
exactly. That's what counts. So, so for listeners to this episode, which we're going to be reviewing WandaVision, probably one of the most talked about shows, whether you're really into Marvel or not, it's probably one of the most popular shows of 2021 so far. You know what I mean? But for listeners of this episode, I'll link Podrew's YouTube channel in the description. You can check out his reaction videos. So yeah, WandaVision.
Yeah, which I didn't react to, but I'm happy to talk about it now. And actually, I want to say something about like what you just said, how popular the show is. Even my parents were into it, watching it, and like my dad particularly is not into superhero stuff. I think generally, I thought he just didn't like it. My mom's I used to see some movies with her. I guess there were superhero movies back in the day, but so maybe she convinced him to watch it. But yeah, I was surprised by that that they were even getting into it. So yeah, really popular, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, my mom is also really she's into superhero stuff as well, like the Marvel Cinematic Universe films. And she was watching the show with me actually, and
Mm.
she was into it. She actually felt really, really bad about what happened to the twins. So let me preface this by saying spoilers. The show is a week old, over a week old already. We're going to go full on spoilers in this review. So if you haven't watched WandaVision yet, go and check out the whole series, then come back and listen to us here. Okay. So
Absolutely.
whether or not you're into the superhero genre, like your parents may or may not be, this show I think has gotten a lot of fans interested, like a lot of casual fans as well. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more as we delve into it. The first three episodes of the show were not really about the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We were just really seeing the lens of WandaVision, the in-universe TV show that Wanda herself, the character, is putting out there. And you couldn't really tell from the very first episode that that's what she was doing. But it was
Right.
fun to watch, like I
I
wasn't.
think that's why. Yeah, I think that's kind of why my parents maybe did, or like my dad was willing to watch it because of like all these TV references they're putting in, and like I think if you're even myself a little bit, I'm not the biggest Marvel fan, but like it definitely had some kind of hook where it's like with these like classic sitcoms, and then they're doing all these like a lot of different episodes had different TV show references that was like makes it more engaging, I think, for people that aren't just there for the MCU, you know.
So that was kind of me. I was kind of there just because I knew that
Yeah.
this was the next part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The last part was Spider-Man Far From Home, which was a movie that came out 2 years ago. Avengers
Mhm.
Endgame, then Spider-Man Far From Home. This show chronologically takes place before Spider-Man Far From Home, and I was here watching it because I
Okay.
wanted to see what happens next in this bigger story. However, I did enjoy the whole, references to classic sitcoms that they kind of had in the first three episodes. I didn't get every single
Mhm.
reference. The one that I thought of the most that I remember watching as a kid was I Love Lucy from Nick at Night. That's the one
Yeah.
that I could remember the most being referenced with the whole um, I don't know, the black and white and the quirky husband and wife characters. You
Right.
probably know more about it, right? Or you could probably pinpoint
Yeah.
more of the
Well,
reference.
also, I do feel like they kind of so not every episode. There was 9 episodes, right? I think at
Yes.
least 6 of the 9 episodes, 6 or 7, had like they were kind of moving up chronologically in terms of like how the TV shows were. So I think you're right. Like the I Love Lucy '50s era is what they're going for in the beginning. And then the second episode was kind of like one long episode, 1 and 2, if I remember. I think they even released them together.
Which episode?
But 1 and 2, the first 2 episodes. Then they come out at the same time.
Yeah, I totally forgot about that. Yeah, the show debuted with
So
first 2, and then we went to episode 3 a week later.
yeah, so I was also getting vibes of like I Dream of Jeannie or Bewitched, which were 2 shows from the 60s that were like very kind of just copies of each other. I think, I don't know which came first, but that I was getting that vibe because like it has, you know, Wanda's a witch obviously, and like doing all that stuff, and it's like a secret. But also I think it was referencing the Dick Van Dyke Show, because they even included that in the one episode toward the end where they're a kid, like Wanda's a kid, and like the bed, you know, the
Episode
backstory.
8, I think that was the part where they
Yeah,
were in Agatha's basement and they were going through these
right,
imaginary
right.
doors showing her from past to past. Is that what the Dick Van Dyke Show was? That was a reference to Dick Van Dyke. Is that what you
They
mean?
literally showed part of the Dick Van Dyke Show like during the
Oh,
episode, which
okay.
I've seen a lot of, like when I was a kid. I probably watched that more than I Love Lucy or any of these other older shows, because my parents are into that too, and I think it was also on Nick and Night or different things. Like I definitely remember watching. Yeah, I think I even remember watching the episode they actually showed in WandaVision, um, which is like it's like in that episode. I don't know. This probably ties in some way to like the actual plot of the WandaVision episode, but in that Dick Van Dyke Show episode, they like it's something about like they're actually having. I don't remember if it's the character of Dick Van Dyke or he's a different name on the show, but I don't remember which character it is. But they're like having it. It's like a whole dream sequence episode where like he sees his wife falling out on this like big pile of like walnuts or whatever. It's actually really, the show holds up really well, I think. So I would recommend people go back and watch that. But yeah, like the whole thing with the separate beds and all that, that was in that show, and that was like a code back then. And I think on I Love Lucy too, and all this, like they literally weren't allowed to show people, even married couples sleeping in the same bed. So they always had on these old black and white shows, they always have them in the husband and wife in 2 separate beds with like the space in between or whatever. So they're kind of referencing that in that episode where I think Wanda switches their beds together. Do you remember that?
I do. Okay, so it's actually Wanda referencing that to this illusion world that she created, Westview, right? Like the city of Westview that she hacked. That was her
Yeah.
making those references. So she grew up, as we saw, she grew up watching these shows, the Dick Van Dyke Show included. So she
Yeah.
put that element in her fantasy to have her and Vision. You're talking about the scene where they're waking up and Vision hears a noise outside, but
Yeah.
he's
Yeah.
waking up
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
his bed and going there. And by the end of the episode, they conjoin it, right? That's
Yeah.
what you mean. Okay.
So
So
I think that's, yeah, like it's definitely a reference to that whole, like, I guess it was a code or whatever it was, like the code of conduct they had to have in these old shows. Like they weren't even allowed to say pregnant. I think there was a whole thing about I Love Lucy where Lucy herself, like Lucille Ball, might have actually been pregnant in real life. I don't remember, but I don't know. But like, I think at least on the show she was, and like they weren't allowed to say the word pregnant in the sitcom. They had to like say like expecting or like use these like euphemisms or terms, you know, like that's how serious. So that's how crazy it
oh,
was.
I actually don't know. I didn't know that, as a matter of fact. And
Yeah.
I didn't catch if they purposely didn't say that Wanda was pregnant or if she was expecting. Eventually,
I didn't
yeah.
catch it either, but I don't know because then it keeps going up chronologically. So by episode 3, that was the more of the baby episode, right? Or the where she had the
Yes.
accelerated pregnancy.
Yes.
So at that point they're moving up, I think, to like the 70s. I don't know what I couldn't place what sitcom or whatever they were specifically
So I don't know
doing,
if this
but
helps, but according to New Rockstars, which I followed their channel a lot while watching the show because I was just so into it. I wanted to watch like breakdown videos. According to them, every episode, at least for the first half of the show, was every decade. So episode 1 was the 60s, episode 2 was the 70s, episode 3 was the 80s, 4 was the 90s, something along those lines. I could be wrong.
See,
I could be off.
I
Yeah.
think that seems to make sense, but I feel like it started even in the 50s, or at least the first 2 episodes were maybe 50s and 60s, or both 60s, because like there was like a somewhat bit of time skipped. I feel like I don't know about this baby episode. Then like there's like this very special episode or something where like the one episode where where Vision starts putting the pieces together and like she tries to end it with the credits, right? And he like stops it, which is
Yeah.
a good sequence. I liked that episode. I think was all up to like the 80s, maybe, of like Family Ties or something like that, that type of vibe of show. And then they I think they went all the way up to like Malcolm in the Middle, which is like late 90s, early 2000s. And then Malcolm in the Middle was in one of the DVDs I noticed too in her
Yes.
flashback.
Yes.
So when the brother comes in, and that was definitely like very like I noticed that right away. I was like, oh, that's definitely a reference to Malcolm in the Middle. I don't know if you ever watched that show back in the day, but
I watched it passively. That was with the
yeah,
actor named Frank something. What was his name? Frankie
Frankie
Muniz.
Muniz.
That's the guy. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, most famously now it had Bryan Cranston, who became like a massive star
Yeah.
after like a decade after that show was on. But
Yeah.
he was the dad on that. But yeah, Frankie Muniz, yeah.
Yeah. I watched
And
that show.
then it was like Modern Family and The Office, but especially Modern Family, I think was like the that's when they got up to like more of the present or whatever. Um,
So The
so yeah, they
Office,
went through the whole like span of decades. Yeah.
The Office and Modern Family references I got most, I think, in episode. Was that the Halloween episode? Yeah, that was the one where they all dressed up and they were like pretending to be interviewed and stuff.
No, I think the Halloween episode. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think the Halloween episode was the Malcolm in the Middle parody one.
Yeah,
The Modern Family one was where because it's like Modern Family because like they talk to the camera like that, and like it's when she's really depressed, which I think was in the following episode.
yeah, you're right. You're right, and I remember that because the Halloween episode ended with her attacking her fake brother. So yeah, you're right.
Right,
That's what
right,
that was.
right. Yeah.
Okay. So,
And all the
um,
commercials too, which we could talk about, but like the commercials went up by the decade as well. Like I think in the Halloween one, it was like a super dark commercial with like 90s style commercial with like the shark or whatever, or like
and
the
the
guy in the
yogurt.
desert island, and
Yeah.
then he like can't open the
He
thing
can't
and turns
yeah,
into
can't
a
open the
skull.
yogurt and he just dies and like you see
Yeah.
his face getting older and older until he turns into like a skull. I think that's what the
Yeah. Super dark. But
um
that like gave me very vibes of like, oh, 90s commercials. So obviously they didn't do that with like the guy dying, but like it was that super kind of extreme like vibe.
yeah, I didn't know what any of the commercials. I honestly didn't really know what the commercials meant or what they were going for. But yeah, we could talk about that because interested to see like if you have if you have certain feelings of like what they could mean. But
Yeah.
so speaking of every like decade per decade that this show did for every episode, so you mentioned you're not like a hardcore Marvel fan, but I would say I follow along quite intently to the bigger story
Yeah.
of things. And the main reason I wanted to watch this show was just to see how is the bigger story progressing. So, um, I will say, the fact that especially the first three episodes, how we're mostly just seeing Wanda's story. I mean, there are bits and pieces of us knowing that there's more to the story than that's going on. Episode one ends with like a screen, like a modern day, like it looks like we saw Darcy's hand. We didn't know it at the time, but that was Darcy's hand.
Oh
He
yeah,
takes
yeah.
a note and a pen, like and writes down some notes. We didn't know what that was supposed to mean then, but that's just the WandaVision, the Marvel show, showing us what this is. And then I think episode two and three, I don't know which one is which. Episode two had a part where Jimmy Woo hacks the radio in the WandaVision show. And
Mhm.
there was also a scene where there was a drone that had colors, like it was red and yellow, like just
Right,
signaling
right.
that something else is going on. Now, my point with all of this is I didn't mind that like MCU story wise, it was kind of slow at first. Like the Disney did a good job like having me hyped and like excited to see the next episode week per week. Like, I was fine with the fact that we were just seeing mostly Wanda's fantasy for the first couple of episodes because I knew eventually we were going to lead somewhere. But a lot of hardcore fans actually took that as a point of criticism to them because the show was just focusing so much on this fantasy WandaVision, like Wanda's WandaVision, not the Marvel show WandaVision, that they're like, what is going on? We want to know what's going on. I'm tired of like seeing this fantasy, not like literally like that, but you know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
they're just seeing it for what Wanda sees it as. They want to know what's really going on. And since we had three straight episodes of just that, people were kind of frustrated. That was one of the first criticisms from the fans was basically the pace of how the show was going. But I don't
Yeah.
like for you though, who's not really that hardcore. You
No,
probably
like for me, I liked that. Honestly, I kind of liked how it was like a little bit of a mystery. Like even like it's like the little thing, yeah, like you saw with the drone, the beekeeper guy coming out, and she like makes him stop, right? And then there's like the part, I think it was the very first episode where they had like the dinner party,
oh
classic
yeah.
sitcom thing, and then like the mom in that who's the mom from that '70s show, which is kind of another sitcom reference.
Oh, holy shit.
Um, she's
Yeah.
in the she's like the wife, and then you see her a couple times throughout the show again. So like she was like, stop, and like she got like frozen, like started saying stop, and you're like, oh, it's like creepy, you know? It's like so I liked all that stuff. And yeah, for me, who's not a big MCU fan, I didn't see that last Spider-Man movie you referenced. I still have never seen Captain Marvel. I didn't particularly like Avengers Endgame. I kind of disliked it, I would say, ultimately.
Oh man.
I was a little burned out on Marvel in general. Like I'm just not that into it. Like I'm not one of these people you're saying. So like so if they started, if it was more like that from the beginning, I probably wouldn't have been as interested. And I don't know if I would have continued. Like so for me, um, and probably my parents, like I mentioned, or my dad at least, and maybe other people, that hook was kind of necessary, and that got me more in. So now I am starting to get a little more interested. Like there's this other show coming out soon. I think what's the
Falcon
next
and
show
the
they
Winter
have?
Soldier.
Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which I wasn't necessarily interested in, but now that WandaVision kind of got me hooked back in a little bit to the world, I might check that show out now. I probably will at least watch the first episode.
Cool.
So yeah, but I see what you're saying. Like I definitely could tell. I could get the vibe of like someone who's like super into all this stuff,
Mhm.
sitting down in the first episode, and it's like this. Yeah, I dream of genie shit. Like whatever. Like what is
Yeah.
going on? You know. So, but I could see both sides of it. But I'm definitely on the one side. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like I guess I can understand the frustration that some fans might have had, like, just being impatient of seeing what was going on. But myself, I was fine with it. Like, like I said, the showrunners, they did a good job of keeping me hooked and keeping me hooked
Yeah.
and wanting to see more and more. So I was cool with it. I was fine with it. There are other fan complaints that I do agree with, but we're gonna get to
Mhm.
that later on. Like we talked about it
The
offline, but
complaints corner, is that
yeah.
something you have on your podcast
Oh
normally?
yes. Well, uh,
Farhad Targaryen.
oh man. But uh, but anyway, yeah. So speaking of your interest in the show as more of a casual fan, by episode
Mhm.
4, that's when kind of the direction of the show changes. Episode 4 was the first one of outside of the hex, where we
Yeah.
see Monica Rambeau um, ejected from the hex, and back in the whole sword thing. I gotta say, first of all, this character, Monica, when she was in the hex, her name was Geraldine, right? By
Yeah.
episode 4 we see how she gets sucked into it, and when they were starting to explain the context of how she was part of the snap, the Thanos snap. You said you saw Avengers Endgame. I'm guessing you saw Infinity War as well, right?
Yeah, I like that one better actually of the two. I liked that one more,
Okay.
and then
So-
yeah, then Endgame didn't really do it for me, but
okay. Well,
uh it was she in that though also because is she a Captain Marvel character? I didn't know who
yes,
she was initially, but
she
okay.
was she
So
was a kid in Captain Marvel. She was like growing up in the
okay.
90s in Captain Marvel. Yeah.
They talk about her mom a lot in this, and
Yeah.
was her mom like a bigger character
Yes.
in that movie?
Her
Okay,
mom was a main supporting character in Captain
got it,
Marvel. Yeah.
got
So,
it.
as a side note, since we're on the topic of the Avengers movies, I just want to ask you your opinion. It is of my opinion that between the two latest Avengers movies, Avengers Infinity War is more of a movie about the action, and Avengers Endgame is more of a movie about the characters. Would you agree or disagree with that opinion?
I mean, I don't know qualified I'm to have to agree or not because like I don't even though what I just said my opinion on the movies where I know I liked one more and the other ones I didn't like as much, but I don't remember too well. I mean, I think the I liked the whole thing and I liked how Infinity War ended. Like I thought that was a cool idea. Like people are disappearing. It's like a dark ending too. Like I don't know. And then like it, I'm trying to remember what I didn't like about Endgame,
It was
but
really long. It was like 3 hours
yeah,
long.
both are really long. I mean, they're way over length, but with all these characters, and maybe because I don't care about certain characters as much. I like the Guardians of the Galaxy characters a lot. Like I like the Guardians 2 movies. Um, that's a little more what I'm into. I like Thor. Like I know we saw the
Ragnarok.
me and you saw Ragnarok together back in the day when we lived. A, when we lived in the same city, and B,
Yeah.
when you could actually go to a movie theater.
Oh
So way
man.
back in the day. But
Yeah.
I liked that movie. Like I liked the Thor character at least. Like I like Tony Stark, but the whole thing with him dying and like this whole kind of set. I don't know. I was a little over the top, I thought. And yeah, so I do like some of the characters, but there's too many, I guess, or there's too many to keep track of. And yeah, it just felt overstuffed or whatever. And it's another thing also. I mean, you get into it with WandaVision too, and this is just a superhero thing in general, but like people coming back from the dead, Deus Ex Machina, all this stuff, like that could get a little bit of, some. But why were you saying that? I'm probably going off on a tangent here. Why what were you saying about like the characters versus the action? Like,
Well, I mean, among the fan community, I feel like a lot of people do say that Infinity War is better than Endgame, and a lot of it just seems to be like the fan servicey plot elements that they have to it, and just because, yeah, both of them are long, but Avengers Endgame is like at least 3 hours long, I think, but it could just be because to me, I feel like I mean, both movies have great character moments, both of them have a lot of action elements to them, but it is of my opinion that there was more of an action focus to most of Infinity War, and Endgame was more just about character development as like kind of like a conclusion to a story that spanned over 20 movies and 10 years. And that might be why, like, because it wasn't as stylized in terms of action, could be why, some people weren't as into it. But that's just me. So I was just curious to see from your perspective as someone who's more of a casual fan, how you felt in terms of the two of the biggest movies. Ironically, just in the
yeah.
past few days, Avatar re-released in Chinese movie theaters, and it retook the throne of the highest grossing film of all time.
Is
Yeah.
it James Cameron? Hasn't he been making like 4 Avatar sequels for like a decade now? They still haven't come
Yeah.
out. Or is he still doing
Yeah.
that?
It's like the movie's over 10 years old now, but it's all Disney property, and it's going to be coming
Oh
soon.
yeah, of
Relatively
course.
speaking, we're going to see Avatar 2 coming soon, pretty soon. So
Yeah, but I guess just to finalize my opinion as it stands now on those 2 movies, I think to me it's not about the action or character. I just felt that Infinity War was more interesting. It had some stuff I haven't seen before, and necessarily I liked the Thanos setup. Like his thing was like, and I know it's from the comics and everything, but like that was actually a more interesting villain, which I know people criticize the MCU and say a lot of their villains aren't interesting. And then Endgame, I think, was more typical, more standard, not as interesting. So I think I just think the storyline was more interesting in the first.
the
I think that's
first
probably what my main difference is to me.
um the first episode of the MGI podcast was Avengers Endgame, and
Okay,
that's what kickstarted the podcast that I used to do with my with the retired co-host Al Rogers.
that was
But
the start game
yeah,
for the
yeah, that was the
podcast.
start game. So I'm starting to get into like having a conversation about Endgame with you before we go more derailed. But I would be interesting to have. I would be interested to have a conversation, like a full on conversation with you about Endgame in general. But
I need to rewatch it basically to have more of an opinion, because I did see Infinity War twice, and I think the first time I saw it in the theater with my brother, we may have had a few cocktails before going into the theater, and then so I think I went back when it was on Netflix, and um, also my brother's kind of a hater, and like I know he hated Infinity War, and like
oh
so he's
man,
probably influencing my opinion a little bit the first time, and then I watched it again myself like on Netflix months later, and I was like, oh, I actually like this. And then Endgame I only saw the one time, so not in the theater at all. Actually, I only saw that one online once,
mm.
so I probably would need to watch it again to if I'm going to
So
talk more about it. Yeah.
based on just what you're saying, I don't think you or your brother would like Captain Marvel that much, which is the movie that ties into WandaVision the most because of Monica,
Okay.
who's a kid in that show. So, yeah, I'm just saying because you also mentioned to me offline that you didn't really get the first of the two end credit scenes, and the character that we see
No.
there was someone else in Captain Marvel. It's on Disney Plus if you ever feel like watching it, but I'm just saying I don't think you're gonna like it that much. But
That's kind of what I think. That's why I probably haven't got around to yet, and because like I was kind of burned out on this stuff. But now that I'm
yeah.
more, I mean, I might actually. I probably should at
Yeah,
this
I mean,
point.
it's all
Um,
on Disney Plus, and you need Disney Plus to
yeah,
watch WandaVision. So if it's there, if you ever feel like watching it, you know what I
yeah,
mean?
I knew that. Yeah, but yeah, I should maybe.
So Monica as a kid in Captain Marvel, she by the time the around the events of Endgame and then WandaVision happened, she was snapped like in by the events of Infinity War, she was snapped. By
Mhm.
Endgame, she snapped back. We see that happen. I
Yeah,
think
in the show. I
yeah,
remember, yeah.
in the beginning of episode 4. So we're starting to see more of Monica and like what's going on outside of the hex, right?
Yeah,
So
and was also, sorry to cut you, but wasn't, I just so I'm understanding the timeline of everything and like the plot line. Her mother, who is the main character in Captain Marvel, you're saying, was not snapped, but she like died of cancer or something like that
yeah,
during the whole thing,
yeah.
right?
So
That's what happened
we didn't know that in Captain Marvel. That's something that happened like after
on
all
the
of that.
show.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
okay,
it's kind of hinted that Monica resents Captain Marvel. I'm guessing like well some of the speculation is that like, Captain Marvel left to go and protect the whole galaxy or maybe even the whole universe. However, she wasn't there when Monica needed her for emotional support. Her best friend uh who was Monica's mom was dying of cancer and uh, what's
uh,
the character's name? What's Captain Marvel's name? I forget that.
I don't know. Brie Larson is the actress. That's all I know.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
just call her Brie. Brie was off. Yeah, because in the end, but she's in both of the Avenger of the Infinity War and
yeah,
Endgame, right? Which
yeah.
is the first time I was introduced to the character, and she did seem kind of like, I know she's, is she human? She is, right? But like she's like seemed like otherworldly kind of, or like
I
apart
think
from
she was
everyone.
born on Earth, yeah, but she got superpowers from something in space. I think from one of the Infinity
Okay.
Stones, actually. Yeah. Uh, as we were talking, it came to mind. Carol Danvers. That's Captain Marvel's like
Okay.
name in the universe. But yeah, so, um, and
Carol
in the
Danvers. That sounds like a 65-year-old.
uh,
Carol Danvers.
yeah.
Your mom's friend Carol.
Well, technically, she is kind of old, right? Like we by the time she
So
comes,
Captain Marvel is a period piece, right?
it took place in the 90s. Yeah,
Okay, the 90s. Okay.
yeah. But
I guess that counts. Yeah.
I think her superpowers help her to like age more slowly. So like she might be like an older character, but she has the appearance of like maybe like a late 20s, 30-year-old woman, I think, and her superpowers maybe help do that for her.
Okay.
Um, but Monica in the comics, she also becomes a superhero. I think her superhero name is Proton. I don't think her superpowers are tied to Wanda, like Scarlet Witch, at all. But they kind of imply that she gains her superpowers from being involved with the Hex. So in
And the
episode,
show, yeah,
yeah,
right, yeah.
you're right.
Like
In
it's like a bulletproof thing, right? That's what happens. Like
it,
she, by going through it several times, she starts, because like isn't the thing? Maybe this is where you're going, but isn't the thing where like they realized that her like 70s outfit or whatever it was got turned into from her bulletproof vest, right? And then
yes,
is the implication that going back in again, because they like kind of warn her like you shouldn't go back in again, which she does anyway.
yeah.
So like did her skin start like fusing with the bulletproof vest or something at this point, or like
So I'm not entirely sure, and I think it's more than just that because well, the
okay,
thing about the hex that WandaVision does is all the material, all the physical material is warped. Like it's still bulletproof, but it was a bulletproof vest, and then it turned into bulletproof pants. You know what I mean? Um,
right,
so that's kind of like what Wanda's able to do is like with her powers. Her powers seem pretty limitless so far, but one of them is that she's able to warp reality inside of the hex. So about Monica as a character when it's shown in episode 4 that she got kind of sucked into the hex. I wasn't sure once that was revealed, and to give context to the first 3 episodes, she was Geraldine in the episodes
right.
before that, and I wasn't sure after learning that if she was under a spell in the hex or if she was still herself and she was putting on an act. Like she knew what was going on, like everybody else is mind controlled, so she pretended to be mind controlled along with everybody else. And the reason I was confused about that is because at the end of episode 3, when she's helping Wanda give birth, she brings up Pietro, her dead brother. Did you see Avengers: Age of Ultron? If not, I'm just letting you know that
I
that's what.
did.
Yeah.
Again, it's I probably don't remember too well, but I definitely remember seeing it back in the day. But about what you're saying though, I think what I took from it was that she was like when she went in, she did become under the spell, and then that part you're talking about where she starts mentioning Ultron and whatever is when she started snapping out of it. Like
Ah,
so you know how like the '70s show mom at the dinner table I referenced started
yeah.
going like she started becoming aware. Like I think it was the same as all these people having like little moments of awareness, and that's when she Geraldine became herself again and like started like realizing, and then after that, I think, because is it the next episode after that where she like kicks her out of the, or is it the end of that same
It's that
episode?
same episode. Yeah, that episode ends because that kind of freaks Wanda out. She's like, "What did you just say?
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
You're not my friend, and I want you to leave." And then she blasts her 5 houses out of there, and
Mhm.
then out of the hex. That's how that
And the
episode.
neighbors are telling like Vision like she doesn't belong here, she doesn't live here or whatever. So they're kind of like somehow become,
Mm.
is that them still being under the spell of Wanda, but like helping Wanda essentially get Monica out of there, right?
Well, her neighbors tried saying that, but Agatha said, stop it," because
Oh, that's
yeah,
right. Okay, yeah, yeah.
Vision was like, "She came here because we're all what?" And they're never able to. He's never able to answer that question. I'm sorry, I forget the name of that neighbor. The
He's
guy.
like cutting through his fence with
Yeah,
his like saw, right, the chainsaw. Yeah,
yeah. Agatha's there, stops him from saying what he wanted to say. Damn, and it's bothering me now that I don't remember the name. I'm not gonna remember the names of a lot of like the Westview characters, unfortunately.
yeah, yeah. I
But
know. I mean, there's like the one. There is like a couple main ones. I mean, the one guy he works with was also, he like became cognizant at the one point, was like, my sister, she's like sick or something. I can't go see her, but then he like gets Vision touches him
Vision
and he goes back.
snaps
Yeah, yeah.
snaps him
But
back.
that's when
Yeah.
he started realizing. But also, I mean, I would guess we're gonna get into this, but like, so this whole Vision thing, and then the kids come in, like, they aren't, because the show kind of tricks you where, not it tricks you, but like it leads you to think that Wanda stole the real Vision's dead body. But what actually happened, she didn't actually do that. The guy was lying, right? The
Yeah, I
director,
think Hayward. Yeah, Hayward. I think was
Hayward.
kind of baiting her. Yeah.
Yeah. So she really just created this Vision out of her own mind or her own powers. Yes.
Yes, exactly. She by the end of the show, she says that she says you are the part because Vision is like, what am I? Like I'm a body without a mind or a mind without a body. He says something pretty philosophical. He also does this when he
Yeah.
fights White Vision, right? And we'll get into that later on
Which
as
is
well.
his real body, right?
Yes, yes.
That's what Hayward was
Yeah.
doing. Yeah.
And Wanda's answer to him is, "You're the part of the Mind Stone that still lives within me," something along those lines. I don't know if she meant that figuratively or literally, but yeah. So Wanda basically created him. Not it's not a figment of her imagination. He's actually there, but Wanda created him. So one last thing about Monica that I did want to ask you about, like we were
Okay.
talking about how her bulletproof vest turned into bulletproof pants, right? Um, Wanda, the next thing about that Wanda notices about her that makes her not trust Monica anymore is the necklace she's wearing with a sword pendant on it. When I first saw that, I thought it was an upside down cross. I'm like, oh, what does this mean? But then eventually it's revealed that she
The
works
devil.
for sword or whatever,
Is
whatever.
sword something we should have known about? Because like because I know Shield is like a thing in Marvel, and there's like Agents of Shield. But like, is
Yes,
sword something they say in the movies ever? I don't remember if it was, but,
I'll tell you.
or is
Yeah,
that just from the comics?
it is from the comics, but that's what they adapted. I'll tell you. Give me one sec. I'll tell you what it means.
Okay.
It stands for
It's an acronym.
the sentient
Super
weapon.
whack
uh,
orders from what's his name? Hayward. Oh, that doesn't fit.
Almost, yeah, you had a good streak there, but it's like the sentient weapon observation and response division, which I guess is the
Okay,
new
so
shield.
Vision is a sentient weapon considered, I guess.
Exactly,
How
exactly.
many
Yeah,
sentient weapons are there? And I mean, I guess there's unlimited in this alien universe.
there was that, and Ultron was supposed to be the first one, but Ultron was a failed, experiment of Tony
Vision
Stark's.
came from Ultron and Jarvis or whatever, right? Or like a combination of them or something.
Kind of, yeah, kind of, and the
Yeah,
Mind
okay.
Stone. Yeah, he
The
was.
stone, yeah.
He's kind of like a combination of all those things. He's Ultron perfected, essentially. He's what Tony tried to make in the first place, I think. But yeah. So the only reason I bring up the sword pendant is because I'm wondering why that wasn't warped. I'm guessing that was just metal or silver or whatever. But when her
Hmm.
clothes were warped, that stayed intact for whatever reason. I don't know, why that would happen. And it gave one of the clue that she needed to know. Geraldine, whoever you are, cannot be trusted. And then that's when she got ejected. But
Maybe there's like, does we still don't exactly ever learn, or maybe we did, but like how much control Wanda actually had over everything. And obviously Agatha's in there doing stuff too, but like, was it like part of her subconscious, like still there, like allowing some of these things in,
oh
like
yeah,
not transferring the pendant from
yeah.
the real world or whatever? I don't know.
That could be it, because eventually by episode 7, I think we see her doing a staycation. She calls it a stay-at-home quarantine. That might have been like a meta reference to everybody being in quarantine in real life, right? And she's sitting there watching TV, and several objects in her room start to warp into like old-fashioned couches and old-fashioned fireplaces and stuff. So she's starting to lose her grip on it. So maybe that's what
Hmm.
happened,
Yeah.
with Monica's pendant, possibly. But yeah, so I like Monica overall as a character, but she didn't have much character development, unfortunately. And I only mean that to say she was siding with Wanda the entire time. We see at the Shield headquarters, well, not the headquarters, but like the base that they built outside of the Hex, where she's arguing with Hayward to say, Wanda's not the bad guy here. If she's the problem, she also has to be her solution. She's on Wanda's side, but um, and it seems like she's only on Wanda's side because she knows that Wanda was an Avenger who saved the world and everything. But that's pretty
Yeah,
much.
that's a good point. Like, why was she so? Because initially she just went in to investigate, right? She didn't
Yeah.
like, but then, yeah, I mean the setup with Hayward versus the team of what's Kat Dennings' character's name, Darcy,
Darcy Lewis. Yeah.
and Jimmy Woo and Monica. They did make it a little simple, like them versus the villainous kind of
Yeah, the
Hayward
big
or
bad
whatever.
monster.
Like I
Yeah,
don't know.
yeah.
And his whole plan ultimately, I mean, maybe we'll talk about that, but like didn't was kind of stupid, or like he like didn't definitely didn't have a good shot of working. He was way overconfident or
No,
whatever,
yeah.
especially going in at the end.
I didn't get what his deal was, because we were introduced to him. The first scene we see with him is a Monica coming back to the actual Sword headquarters. He
Right.
knew Hayward because Hayward worked with his mother, Maria. I think, yeah, Maria Rambo, and like he was telling her, you belong here, you belong at Sword, and then they start working together. He didn't come off as that villainous. We didn't get like his intentions or what his, what angle he's coming from in terms of who
Right.
he's going to fit in the show. By the time we get to base setup outside of the Hex is when we get to see what his real motivation is, right? But I didn't get it when they were first introducing him. But as we're talking about the Sword characters, one thing about the show that I did actually really really like is how they found a creative way to make Darcy an important character, at least in the middle of the show, not in the beginning or the end, but in the middle of the show. They brought Darcy back as an MCU character, as kind of an important character. She was able to figure things out where nobody else kind of was. The CMBR, the cosmic microwave radiation or something. She was the one who picked up on that, right? And she and Jimmy Woo also tag team and make, they together are able to figure out a few plot elements as well. Jimmy Woo was a character in Ant-Man and the Wasp. Did you watch that? That
I
came
did
out.
see that one. I didn't necessarily remember him being in it, but I knew he was then. Like I think I looked it up or someone told me yeah he was in that Ant-Man and the Wasp. I yeah. Yeah, I'm just not good. Even Darcy, right? She was in Thor, the Thor movies, but not the one we saw, not Ragnarok,
In
right?
1 and 2. She was in the first one,
So
and
I didn't even barely remember her that well. I just recognized the actress initially. I was like, oh, she's in this, and then I forgot that she was even a
right.
Marvel
Okay,
character already.
but I
But
mean,
also, was there one part where they're like, we're gonna bring someone else in, and then did we ever see who that was?
if you're talking about Paul Bettany, the guy who plays Vision, are you talking about
No,
like what the actor said, or the character?
no. I thought there was like a part where like I can't remember if it was Darcy or Monica, but they're like, I have someone I can call.
Yeah, yeah. So
Who was
Monica,
that? Did I miss who that was?
they didn't introduce who that was, but that's where a
Okay.
lot of another fan theory speculation part of what came about from WandaVision. Monica said, "Oh, I know a great aerospace engineer who could definitely crack
Yeah.
this." And a lot of fan theories speculated that it could have been Reed Richards, who's the leader of the Fantastic Four, who Disney now has the rights to because they bought Fox, just like the X-Men. A lot of people speculated that's what it was going to be, and it set up for a little bit of disappointment when it turned out to, not lead to anything. It could be, that what that first end credit scene was alluding to. But yeah, I don't know who it could have been.
Yeah,
I
but it didn't seem like that alien person. She wasn't. Monica wasn't expecting to see her. It didn't seem like from the
No, no,
scene.
she wasn't. No, she wasn't. So it
So
could
I
have
don't
been.
know if that would be it either. Yeah, that's interesting. Also, I guess is it confirmed that they're doing a season 2 of WandaVision, or are they going to continue the story through the movies, or
No,
like?
it's a season 2 of WandaVision is not confirmed, but there is a rumor that she's going to appear in Doctor Strange multiverse of in the in the multiverse of madness, and she might be a villain in that movie as well.
Yeah.
That's what the
Is
ongoing.
that even a rumor? I thought maybe it's confirmed that she like Elizabeth Olsen. I think is like in the cast for that movie. Like I
Oh
think
yeah,
she's definitely going to be
I
in
think
it.
you're right.
But maybe we don't know. Yeah, if she's a villain or not, or are her and Doctor Strange going to be at odds or whatever?
I
Or
mean,
something.
it would make sense for her to be a villain considering everything she did in this show. In my opinion, she was basically a bad guy. Like she was kind of a protagonist.
Yeah.
She was kind of a
Well, that's another interesting thing we didn't get into too much yet. I mean, we were talking about it that the it was more a lot of people got interested because of the TV show allusions and everything
yeah.
references, but also like the whole show itself was kind of like about her grief, right?
Mhm.
Just kind of an interesting angle for like a superhero thing, like about like someone dealing with their grief over like everyone they know dying and all this stuff.
Yeah.
Like so that I thought that whole angle was interesting, and Olsen I think is a really good actor. Like she portrayed it pretty well, but she is like a villain, like she is like a villain. Not she's not like a purposeful villain. I would say like
I
I she,
yeah. Go
I
ahead.
don't
Go
know.
ahead. I'll tell you my
She's
thing.
like
Finish your thoughts, and I'll
yeah
tell you how I feel.
yeah. So like Agatha or whatever is villain if she's trying to get something out of her, right, or do her own thing. Like Wanda is like she's like being very irresponsible, but I don't think she and like all these people's lives got affected badly over it, possibly ruined to some degree.
Yeah.
But like she wasn't like doing it, and I still don't think she was exactly doing it intentionally, or she didn't exactly realize what she was doing. I feel like,
Well,
but you
okay.
disagree maybe, or let me
I
hear what your opinion
I
is.
do. Okay, so
Yeah,
first of all, before I get into how I feel about Wanda as a villain to the people of Westview in the show, I do want to mention one thing, which is that Wanda and Vision as a couple, I didn't really care for, and I kind of disliked before this movie. They were building up them two as a relationship. It's kind of started in Captain America: Civil War. We saw the two characters
yeah,
spending
they're
time.
like living together or
Yeah,
something,
in
and
the
yeah,
in
I
the
vaguely remember it.
in the Avengers compound in upstate New York. They were kind of like showing how they were, kind of developing feelings for each other. We saw more of that in Avengers Infinity War, but I really did not care about Vision all that much back then. Once
Yeah, me either.
Thanos ripped the Mind Stone out of his head and threw him away, I'm like, good riddance, bye Vision. I did not care that Vision was there. I was glad that he was like one less character in this MCU. Honestly, that's how I felt back then. But
Yeah.
I liked them. I liked them a lot more here, and I liked them a lot more as a couple. So this show did a good job of making me go through a 180 of them two as a couple in the show. There are a lot of MCU couples that I didn't really care about. Another one being Bruce Banner and Natasha Romanoff. I hated that romance in Age of Ultron. One of the reasons being they alluded to Natasha having a thing with Clint, Hawkeye, in Avengers 1. And I was kind of hoping they would have shown more there. But they ended up showing that Hawkeye actually has a secret wife and kids, like a secret family.
Yeah, he's married to Linda Cardellini from Freaks and Geeks, another classic, a late '90s show.
I remember her from Scooby Doo.
Human
but
issues and yeah,
um,
Grandma's Boy. But yeah,
but and then Bruce Banner. I don't know if you saw the Incredible Hulk. A lot of people probably haven't.
I don't honestly remember if I saw that. I don't think I saw. Oh, it didn't have it didn't have Mark Ruffalo, right? It was.
No, Edward Norton. Yeah, he got
I think
recast.
I did see it actually. Yeah, but that was
So
so long ago.
I think that's kind of an underrated film in this franchise, and there was a romance there that I actually appreciated. But Betty Ross as a character kind of got lost in this universe. The writers never brought her back. They brought her father back in Civil War, but not her. But I would have hoped if they were to have a romance with Bruce Banner, they should have just brought that character back. I hated the romance between Romanoff and Banner. However, like I was saying, this show made me actually feel like kind of root for WandaVision as a couple. I actually liked it.
Yeah, they have a good chemistry together for
Yeah,
sure.
they
Yeah,
did, they did. And Paul Bettany is actually a really good actor in my opinion. He's
yeah,
one
yeah,
of the best actors
yeah,
of the
for sure.
show. After I finished watching WandaVision, I went back and I watched another old movie. I think the first movie I ever saw with him in it when I was a kid, which was A Beautiful Mind with Russell Crowe. I
Yeah,
don't know if
he's
you.
or he's like the imaginary
Yeah, Charles.
friend of yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So yeah. But anyway, so here's why I disagree with the point you're making about Wanda not intentionally being a villain. At first, maybe yeah, she didn't realize the damage she was causing, but Vision tells her about it. Like, remember that scene where Vision is at work and he there's this
Mm.
email that shows up on his computer that's actually from Sword. It's the people from the outside of the Hex trying to hack into WandaVision, and an email pops up on the computer,
Yeah,
and
that's a scene where that guy wakes up a little bit that I was
he
kind of mentioning
Vision wakes
before.
him up, like he touches
Oh,
his
right,
yeah,
that's
touches
right.
him on
Yeah,
the
yeah,
temple and
that's
forces him out of it. And then we hear about how much he's in pain and that he has to call his sister taking care of his mother or something like that. And he's screaming, begging, pleading Vision for help. And he says, she's doing this, she's doing all this. So we know he's probably talking about Wanda. But then
well,
Vision
yeah.
snaps him back. And this is why I kind of disagree with you about, Wanda doing things unintentionally. Maybe before she did not realize the damage she was causing, but Vision tells her about it and she still doesn't do anything. That's the thing. Vision
She's in deep denial,
that doesn't make it
Yeah.
okay.
Well, we're not saying it's okay. My
Yeah.
argument's not that it's okay. Like what she's doing is clearly morally wrong, but I'm just talking about what the intention is. Like it seemed to me like she just like spiraled into something where she did like lose control of it basically, and uh, yeah, I mean it's a very like hard point to try to say one way or the other. Like it's kind of I guess it's kind of objective or subjective where the line is here of like what makes someone a villain. But I think it's just more of a gray area with her, whereas other characters like Agatha or Hayward have like clear intents where you can say like, okay, they're a villain for this specific reason. Like they know what they're doing. They're trying to do that. Like with her, it's just way more. It's way more ambiguous to me.
Okay.
And I don't like dislike her exactly, even though I think what she did was wrong. Like it's not like I would gonna root against her going forward necessarily. Or I mean, you could like a villain also and find them interesting, but
Exactly. And
I'm just not. To me, I don't. To me, I started thinking she was more of one, and by the end of the show, my opinion of that lessened actually when you see everything that happened. But yeah, she's definitely not like a hero, certainly
yeah.
in the span of this show. But
Yeah.
also like can you tell me how much she does know about her powers? Because it seemed like, well, two things I wanted to ask. One is like actually the name Scarlet Witch. They never called her that until the final episode, right? And I guess in all the movies they only call her Wanda. Was
I
that like a rights thing? They didn't have the right to say until they got these
hmm.
other characters, or
So there's a mixture of things. I'm not 100%, but I think the name, like on a computer, Scarlet Witch shows up on a computer in Avengers: Age of Ultron back when she was experimented on.
okay,
And back then, maybe this was way before Disney bought Fox, right? So the X-Men, which Wanda Maximoff is a character in that universe as well, um, they were never referred to as mutants back then. And we
because
also
that was a rights thing, right?
yeah, that was the right thing. They never mentioned that. And I don't know if you saw Captain America: The Winter Soldier, which might be one of my favorite movies
I
of the
did
year.
see that one. That
Okay,
was a pretty good one.
it was. It
That
was
was more of like
great.
a spy espionage one,
Mhm.
right?
The action scenes were great there as well. The end credit or the mid credit scene, the mid end credit scenes or whatever, was a scene showing was a scene showing Hydra experimenting on Wanda and her brother Pietro. Do you remember
Yes, I
that
do
scene?
remember
Okay,
that. I do remember that. Yeah.
so from that point forward, which was 2014, the audience members of the MCU, the implication is just that these are two people, they were born normal, but experimented on, and that's how they gain their powers. That's what we knew back then. But I think it can be argued that WandaVision kind of shows it as a retcon for the audience now to see, because in episode 8, we see how when she was a little girl with her twin brother, they were trapped under some rubble, and
Yeah.
a Stark Industries rocket kind of landed in front of them, and
Hmm.
she was
When
able
they
to
were watching
stop
the
it.
Dick Van Dyke Show, right? Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah.
But
So yeah, so she did have some powers, they say,
yes,
and
yes.
so that's like the other part of my question about this is like, what did she know up until the final episode of the season? What did she know about herself and her own powers? Because it seemed like Agatha was telling her about it, kind of like you are this or whatever, and she was just realizing more about it. So like,
Well, I think she knows that, you know, she has more power than she knew she was capable of, first of all. And second of all,
Mm.
thanks to Agatha, she found a way to become even more powerful on top of that because of that book, the Darkhold, you know, the one that Agatha had in her basement, the Darkhold, like with the
Right.
keys and stuff. And in the very, very end credit scene, we see her in her astral form reading pages of that book. And I think the fact that
Okay,
she's
so that was what she was doing in the final credit scene.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So
Yeah.
I think she's gonna end up becoming even more powerful after she, you know, studies it, and because she gained all this power without even studying, right?
Mm.
Agatha mentioned to Wanda how she was studying dark magic, black magic for hundreds and hundreds of years, and she's still not as powerful as Wanda. She wants Wanda's power. Wanda
Yeah.
already has all this power without any, you know, without any studying. So imagine how powerful she will be when she reads
Mm.
the entire book that she got from Agatha. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is why
By the way, I like that scene with that. I thought it was clever, the scene with Agatha where you see her flashback where it's like the Salem witch trials, but it's actually witches that are trying to put her at the stake. I thought that was
yeah.
kind of funny.
Okay.
But about that, so like is Wanda or Scarlet Witch potentially going to be like the most powerful person in the universe now, or like is that a potential, or
I think
who's like
yeah.
more?
I
Okay.
think she already is the most powerful. Before WandaVision, I would say that Captain Marvel is the most powerful. Well, brute strength wise, I think like I don't think Wanda the person would be able to like lift a 50-story building with her own two hands. She could use it
Well,
with magic,
obviously not.
telepathy,
Obviously
right?
not.
But brute strength wise, Captain Marvel I think is still the most powerful. Like she could lift a 50-story building like with her pinky, and like that would be fine.
Okay.
She's like a Dragon Ball Z
She's
character.
like Supermanish. Are you saying?
Yes, pretty
Okay.
much, pretty much. But in terms of like all powers, like all comic book powers, like
Because mind controlling people is way more powerful. Like Captain Marvel can't do that, right?
yeah,
Or Superman can't do that.
yeah,
Like the ability to like change people. So it would make sense if they're going her taking her down the path of being a villain because
mhm,
like
mhm,
that makes sense if she's the most powerful. That's
yeah,
the villain. Then like they got to stop her. You know, even if she's um, no matter what her intent is, I guess if it's antagonistic or not. So that would make sense, I guess.
yeah, yeah. Okay, I do think I kind of agree with the theories. I mean, like it's my own fault if I'm wrong about this, and I'm disappointed. But I'm kind of on board with the rumors that she will be the main villain, like the main antagonist of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. But since we're on the topic of villains in general, um,
Mm.
and I think what you said about, you know, her being a villain is kind of like a gray area. Stan, like it's in the gray area. It's ambiguous and it can be debated whether how much of a villain she actually is. I honestly think like you make a valid point, and you know I'll give you credit where it's due. But in my opinion, like my side of it is I will say she is a villain through and through only because Vision makes her aware. She didn't know the damage she was causing, but Vision makes her aware of it, despite the fact that she's in denial. Vision literally says to her, Norm was in pain. He's in pain. You need to make this stop. But she's like, you know, shut up, forget it. No, like this is fine. This is fine. So to me, she's still a villain because she's going
Okay.
along with her whole thing. But with other characters who are straight up villains, the other two villains would be Hayward and Agatha. Okay, so let me start with Hayward because he's the less complex of the two antagonists, right?
Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
we talked about him a little bit already. When we see him for the first time, he's talking to Monica, and he doesn't really seem like much of a villain. But we find out more and more that he's putting all the blame on Wanda for the hex and stuff going on with Westview. It all kind of started with like a missing persons case with the FBI. That's how Jimmy Woo gets involved, right? Um, and
Right.
there was also this one line basically where Darcy is completing a sentence for Jimmy saying, let me say this for you. They're all, and then Hayward says terrorists. They are all terrorists, which the show is kind of meta, like meta trying to tell us that Hayward is the bad guy here, right? So the thing about him is I feel like his the pacing for him being a bad guy was kind of it was too quick, especially toward the ending where they introduce White Vision. Like we see all along that his plan is to get Vision put all back together again and to go into the hex and attack the other Vision. But we also see, because we were first led to believe Wanda steals Vision's dead body. Later we see that
Right.
that's not true. But I think Hayward may have tried to bait her into creating the hex. Like he knew how much, I guess he knew how much Wanda cared about Vision. Like she loved him, and she knew that he knew that she would have a bad reaction to seeing his body all in different pieces, right? She even says, "Oh, I can't feel you," trying to like like see like his headpiece, and then she leaves. So all of this basically makes Hayward that almost cliche movie villain where he's just like a military guy who's trying to create a
Yeah.
super weapon or whatever, and that's what White Vision.
Yeah, it's not subtle at all, definitely. But why did I didn't necessarily put the piece together that he wanted her to create the hex. So like, what does he gain from that?
I don't know. Okay, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe yeah, maybe he doesn't get anything out of that, or maybe he was hoping. Maybe they were having a hard time putting Vision together, and he was hoping that she would be able to do something to help him become reanimated more quickly. I guess, or that I
Maybe
could be just grasping at straws.
I kind of thought that he just wanted to get rid of her and like um by showing the pieces he was being like, see, that's what's the deal is right now, like
Mhm.
that's it, like he's gone, or I don't know, because she, what
Like
did she wanted to bury him or something, right? Or I
I
don't.
think so. Yeah, yeah. She said that she wanted to bury him. I loved him. He's dead. I want to bury him. And he says something like, "You don't get to bury a $3 billion piece of vibranium."
Yeah,
I think that was his
yeah.
response. Yeah. But by the end of the show, and not like I was complaining about the pacing of him as a character as being a villain. That's also like what I feel the show suffers from is pacing, especially at the end. I think everything
Yeah,
that happened in the finale, the pacing was really, really bad in that episode. It should have been 10 episodes. Like that, the events of
I
that
don't know
episode,
why it wasn't. That seems more typical to do a 10 episode versus 9. Yeah, I don't did an even number like that.
it could just be because this is a mini series and not a regular television series, is why they went for less, fewer than 10. I don't know. I don't know, man. But I agree that this show should have had 10 episodes only because not because, oh, I love WandaVision, I gotta have more, which other fans were probably feeling like. To me, it was just as a viewer of this show, as watching television, I feel like the pacing was awful in the 10th episode, I mean in the ninth episode. So White Vision is introduced at the end of the eighth, unleashed in the ninth, and he just kind of comes and goes. There should have had two episodes having White Vision as a character. Hayward also shows up there. He kind of busts through and he gets out of his car and tries to shoot the two twins.
Yeah,
We never see how far he's willing to go. We never get enough time with him as as a person to see how bad of a person he is. So for him to just do that, I think they were kind of too quickly showing how bad of a guy he is. You know what I mean? I
yeah,
can't explain it.
yeah. I agree. Also, like I was saying before, like his plan was dumb too, because like he was just charging in. Like, how did he really hope to? Even if Monica wasn't there, to add even more complication to it, and even if Agatha wasn't there, which I guess she was distracting Wanda, which might have been helpful. Like even with those pieces removed, is he really going to be able to take her? No, I mean no,
No.
right? Like what is he going to do? So I don't know. They would have needed to. I think if he was smarter, he probably would have tried to do something more like sneaky or more undercover, of like sending other undercover agents in to try to like pacify her in some way, or like, you know what I mean, or I don't know.
If he
But
were more of an empathetic person, yeah, but he just seemed to be like a cold
not
hearted.
about empathy, but just to get his goal, what he wants, like to get her out of the picture and to use the real Vision as a weapon. I don't know.
But that's the thing, he already had the real Vision with him. Like he White Vision is the real Vision that
Right,
was in
right.
his possession the whole time. So yeah, I guess I don't really fully understand that either, like his motivations. But I should also point out, I think another reason episode 9 suffers from more things than the rest of the show does is because filming WandaVision eventually went into the pandemic, like
Yeah, I was
COVID
wondering
and
about that.
everything. Yeah, so I think by the time the world was being controlled by COVID-19, is around the time like they were filming episode 9, so they had to kind of change things around, and we
The
were talking.
visions have to be far apart, 6 feet apart from each other,
Oh
but
man. Um, Yeah, all this social distancing. Everybody was like going at Wanda at the end, and she was freaking out
Yeah,
because they weren't social distancing. But so the
their
doctor.
masks turn into bulletproof masks, or
Oh,
their bulletproof vests turn into masks.
that would be
Yeah,
super useful. But yeah, Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness originally was supposed to release much closer to WandaVision, but the release schedule for movies also got out of
oh
whack
yeah, yeah.
because of.
Black Widow still hasn't come out, right?
Exactly. It's supposed to come out in a couple months though, in theaters, not on Disney Plus. But yeah, that's a story. Like that's a story in and of itself of Disney being adamant about not releasing movies on streaming, even though they have a couple of times. There was the live action Mulan, and then another animated film. I forget what it's called. It's the one with the green dragon.
Something about a dragon, yeah.
Yeah.
But they haven't done many Marvel ones, yeah. Okay.
Nah. I'm
Well, they
sorry.
got all these shows now, other than the Hawkeye one too. There's like a bunch. Not Hawkeye maybe
Yeah.
too, but
Yeah.
I meant why can't I keep Falcon? His show is the next one. They like I was looking at. They have like 8 or 9 more shows like in the pipeline here coming out in the next 2
After
years.
that
Yeah.
is Loki. There's a show just about Loki coming out too.
Yeah, that might be good too because he's a good
Yeah.
character.
Yeah.
He's funny.
So the reason I was bringing up the pacing and COVID affecting filming of episode 9 is
Yeah, you think
because
that was partially
yeah
the reason?
the reason I was mentioning that is because I was telling you earlier how I really liked how the show made Darcy a more important character. They found a way to bring Darcy back and make her an important character, but her role in the final episode was kind of short-lived, right? She just rams her truck into Hayward's car and is like,
Right.
have fun in jail or something like that, and that could just be because of how filming was going on. They couldn't give the actress more time there, but you know that's
I don't know if I don't even know, but I think it might just be they just didn't have anything else for like her to her story to go or whatever, so they give her one
possibly.
thing. I
Eh,
mean, it did the final episode did go into even like the fight with Agatha and the 2 fights with the 2 visions and with Agatha and
yeah,
Wanda. Like
yeah,
it's back to more of the typical Marvel thing, people fighting in
yeah,
the sky, space
yeah.
star thing, which I'm not as into. So like that's probably why I didn't maybe like the finale as much either as some of the other
So
episodes, but
we were we were
a
talking
little more
about
typical.
yeah we're talking now about the finale and about the 2 villains. So we talked about Hayward, now Agatha. So
Mhm.
they hinted throughout the first half of the show of Agatha knowing more than she might actually like be leading on to. She was helping taking care of the twins. She witnessed the twins becoming like 5 years older, right? She was there when that happened.
Yeah,
Um, and
she killed the dog,
she
which
killed
is
the
always
dog.
the mark of a villain.
Mark which well, she might have even
Oh,
created
just
that
the
dog.
villain in general. Yeah, if you
Yeah,
hurt animals, you're definitely the villain.
but I don't even know if that was a real dog, to be honest. Like that could have all just been her. It could have been Agatha all along. But yeah, it could have also been
Yeah,
her doing something evil. But speaking of her being evil, this show, not just this show, the Marvel Cinematic Universe in general has done, these flashback scenes to kind of set up villains. The only exposition to we get of Agatha being evil is that 10-minute flashback of her, in 1693, being roped up and I guess executed for practicing dark magic or black
that's
magic.
that's what I was referencing before, and I was like, I like it was clever. They instead of people trying to burn the witches, the other witches trying to take out one of their own.
Yeah, yeah.
With but
So
was she even being evil back then? Maybe I don't remember, but
I mean, her mother
or did she
mentions
just?
that they were killing her because of her practice of evil magic or something like that.
Okay.
So, but
Or I thought maybe it was just she was just too powerful or something, but that's why. But yeah, she was doing bad things.
she was doing something nefarious, I think. And
Okay.
at, the point of that scene was to get the audience to know that Agatha's a bad person and we shouldn't trust her. But that one scene was not enough for me to root against Agatha. Honestly, like it showed how callous she was. She just walks up to her mom's dead body and kind of like steals a crown or something. She does something, right? And it just shows how callous of a person she is. But
Wait, her mom.
yeah, the last witch who was basically sentencing her to death, that was her mother. That was Agatha's mother.
Oh, it was. I didn't pick
Yeah,
up on that at all. Okay.
yeah, dude.
I thought it was like the leader of their coven or whatever.
It might have been the leader, but also her mother at the same time. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
But I'm just saying that scene didn't do enough to make me like root against Agatha. If the if they
He's
wanted me
well.
to, yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
I guess I just thought of this because also we just mentioned Loki a minute ago. Like
Yeah,
she's kind of more of that type of villain, I would say. Like
but
she's kind of.
yeah, but Loki has had character development throughout several movies. You know, not just like one movie, and we see
Oh
him.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, so your more issue is that they didn't develop that enough with
yeah.
her.
Like I would have rather liked to have seen not like a whole episode dedicated to Agatha. I think that would have been too much, but maybe have a own separate like one piece television movie showing Agatha's background as a character, setting her up. That
Hmm.
probably would have got me
They
feel.
still could do that theoretically. I mean, she's not dead, right?
Yeah, they could. They could still do that. I mean, I mean, like as a flashback or a prequel showing, what she had
Yeah.
really done. But that I'm just saying that one scene wasn't enough to get me to feel like, oh, she's who I should be rooting against, and I'm rooting for Wanda. That scene didn't do it for me. It just showed me what like what she was capable of. She had powers, maybe not as powerful as Wanda, but a worthy adversary, as we see in the finale.
Hmm.
Um,
Maybe not though, because she at the end of the day she didn't really
yeah,
wasn't really able to do much as soon
yeah.
as Wanda was able to realize her full
Well,
potential, right?
but if it wasn't for Agatha, the people of Westview would still be under the hex. If you think about it, it's because they started fighting that Wanda was kind of forced to release them from her spell. You know, so
Hmm.
it's hard for me to root against Agatha. I guess her main quest is just power. She wanted to become more powerful, but it's not like she wanted to do evil things with all that power. She just wanted Wanda's power for herself. In the comics, I can't speak too much about it because admittedly I'm not a huge fan of the comics, but I think in the comics she's more of an anti-hero. She's not a straight up villain. She's not a super villain in the comics. She's more of an anti-hero. So, and she's not dead in the show. She's put back under a spell, as we saw. That's how it
Hmm.
ended. So they might find a way to bring the actress back.
That's kind of what I mean about her being kind of like Loki. I think she still is like kind of an anti-hero in this show also, or like that's
Well,
kind of how I was seeing her.
in the show,
It's
she
like
was.
more of like a wild card villain, not like the one who's going to and who could maybe who will potentially side with the quote unquote good guys at time to time, based on what she wants to do.
Yeah, yeah.
But she's never going to be like the ultimate bad, evil person.
She has the potential to become more of an anti-hero. In this
Hmm.
in this show, she was definitely just a straight up villain, in my opinion. Just like how Loki in Thor, in Avengers, in Thor: The Dark World, in those movies, he was a straight up villain, in my opinion. It wasn't until
Yeah,
the movie we saw together, which was Ragnarok, that he started becoming an anti-hero. And then ultimately, he tries to do the most heroic thing of trying to kill Thanos, and that's when he dies. He dies trying to do the right thing,
yeah.
right?
Also, I think there is. I'm not disagreeing with anything you're saying, but there is a slight difference between an antagonist and a villain. So,
That's true.
like,
Yeah,
if someone's like, obviously Loki's the main antagonist of the Avengers,
yeah.
but um, he's not necessarily. Maybe that's a bad example. I guess he is villainous in that, but like, you can't. It's not always exactly the same thing, depending on whose perspective you're looking at and who. That's what I mean. They can like change their allegiances too, also, and like, I don't know.
Yeah, you're right. I shouldn't be using them so interchangeably. I only do because I forget the difference a lot of the time. And I also use the words main character and protagonist interchangeably a lot too, but that might also not mean the same thing all the time either.
Actually, that does mean the same thing. I mean, the protagonist is the person you in a story building or whatever. That's the person you're um, like Luke Skywalker is the protagonist of the Star Wars, of the first Star Wars movie. Like that's the person you're keyed in on. So a protagonist can also be that, like Wanda, like we're saying, is obviously the protagonist of WandaVision, but she might be also a villain, like you're saying, like you think she is. So
Yeah,
it's just
yeah,
more about where the perspective is versus what they are doing and how morally they're acting.
right. So speaking of perspective, my perspective as an audience member at the end of the show, because we've been talking about the finale, is one scene that Monica said that really didn't resonate with me was
Let's
how
transition here. How you're getting into this. My perspective on the end one.
no, because we're talking we've been spending
No,
some
no.
time talking about the ending, and Monica says something along the lines of they'll never understand what you sacrificed for them, for them to have peace of mind. And Wanda's like, oh, they'll it's not going to change how they feel about me. It's
Yeah,
like
which I agree with. She's right. It's not going to.
it's not, but the show, like the it doesn't, in a way, it doesn't matter what we the audience members think. What matters is what the people in the universe think about Wanda, like the main characters
Mhm.
and the characters in Westview, more so the main characters. Monica sees this, like she feels more sympathy for Wanda, what Wanda had to give up. She even said something along the lines of, if I had your powers, I would have done the same to bring my mom back, you know, because her mom died of cancer. And then Wanda kind of leaves, you know. She doesn't seem like she has much remorse for the things that she has done, and she doesn't suffer any consequences for it. Now, some fan arguments there have been, well, a lot of the MCU characters don't face consequences for their actions, like Tony Stark, who accidentally created Ultron. He never faced any consequences for it. Yeah, I guess he really didn't. He didn't at the end of the day, but he,
Billionaires don't tend to face a lot of
oh
consequences in
my
this
god,
world
yeah.
or in that world, I guess.
Yeah, but there's more to it than that. You know,
Yeah.
he was creating Ultron for the right reasons. You know, he wasn't trying to be selfish about it. I mean, it was his fault, and he should have faced consequences for it. But what Wanda was doing was only for her own self pleasure. She created the Westview fantasy for her own self pleasure to the expense
I
of,
don't think self pleasure is quite the right term we're looking
not
for.
self pleasure, but like self satisfaction. I don't know, for her own
Yeah.
peace of mind.
Self interest, I
Yeah,
guess, could be
self
more
interest.
broad. Yeah.
Yeah.
Self pleasure is what she's doing with maybe
Um,
some parts of old Vision there. Who's
oh man.
all
Um,
right.
but yeah, I don't like that Monica said that. Honestly, I don't like
Yeah,
how,
it rubbed me the wrong way a little bit too. I got to be honest. They did seem like you kind of alluded to this before, but they did seem like they made the Monica character like really back behind Wanda,
Wanda.
which even if she had more perspective, which she did have more perspective on what was going on than most, if not all, of the other characters, it's still like, yeah, it's still like, would she really be that much on her side? I don't know.
I really don't know either. She was rooting more for Wanda than even Darcy and Jimmy were, I think. I mean, they weren't even as involved in the plot as Monica
Yeah, well,
was.
Darcy's more kind of like snarky or whatever. She's kind of removes that way, you know. She's like, but still on the side of like what's right, I guess. Jimmy was kind of. I mean, I'd like to see more into his character too. I feel like they could do a show about him, probably. Honestly,
I'm pretty sure he's gonna come back in Ant-Man Part 3. I think
yeah,
it's called
probably.
Quantumania. Yeah, he'll be there. Darcy will be in Thor. Well, not, yeah, whatever Thor 4 is. Love and Thunder. Thor Love and Thunder. She'll be back there, and Wanda, the character, will be back in Doctor Strange. So all these characters are, you
So
know.
is Thor the next Thor coming out when? Like, is everything going to be over? Can I come take a trip back to New York and we'll go? Or I guess I would have to go upstate, but we'll go. Well, we could both
Uh,
meet down there and go
I
back to
mean,
the old Astoria Theater.
look, all of my best friends are in the boroughs, so you know, I'm gonna find myself coming back to the city anyway. So yeah, well, that'll be cool. That'll be cool getting to see Thor Part 4 again, like in theaters. Yeah, that'd be dope. But yeah, so we're gonna see all of these characters. You know, the supporting characters, they're all going to be back at some point. Um, for the, you know, for the conversation we're having just about the finale of a WandaVision, I uh I just feel like, you know, the fact that Monica, as kind of a hero as well, she doesn't really, you know, she doesn't try to bring to Wanda's attention, you know, facing, you know, trying to realize, you know, what you did to these people. They scowl at her and then she just leaves.
Yeah,
They didn't dare try to gang up on her because they know like that would mean she would defend herself and probably choke
yeah,
them
that
to
would be
death.
pointless. There's no,
Yeah.
yeah,
If, however, if Doctor Strange Part 2, you know, highly references what she did to the people in Westview, and that's like a main talking point in like his sequel, then I'll feel like, okay, then that kind of makes the ending of this show better if they do talk more about what she did in Westview. If not, then it's just points against WandaVision, in my opinion. Um, Other than that, in terms of the ending, we talked about the pacing, right? I didn't really mind that the ending was very typical third act of, you know, this person versus
hmm
this person flying and shooting. It was too much in for one episode. It should have been spread out between two episodes, just the events in general, not just of Wanda and Agatha, but also Vision versus White Vision, you know. White Vision kind of shows up. We don't see much of what this character is.
Is that his official name, by the way, or is that just
No,
what we're
no,
calling
I don't know what his
Did they
official
give him?
name is.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it just so you know. I don't
Yeah,
confuse
yeah.
you with this vision, that vision. I'm just saying that so that the purpose of this.
I'm just wondering. I was just wondering, yeah, if that was
Yeah,
something they said.
I
Okay.
honestly, man, I have no idea. But yeah, to the point of this fight, them two are fighting Vision, fighting White Vision, only for a little while. But then they stopped fighting because this was interesting because Vision is like, "Why are you doing this?" And he's like, "This was what I was made for." Then they talk. Vision makes this one specific reference. White Vision kind of gets, and he says, "I need some elaboration, dude." And then they talk a little bit more, and Vision taps White Vision's head and unlocks the memories hidden within his brain, right? And then White Vision just flies away, and that's the end of it. I'm sure we're gonna see him again in one of the future TV shows or movies, but the fact that they kind of like interjected him into this story and then he's just gone, there wasn't enough exposure. He didn't have enough. I don't want to say enough screen time, but he didn't have enough development in the show. His arc was not. It wasn't. I'm trying to think of the best way to describe it. It wasn't not well thought out. There's a better word to explain what I'm
Yeah,
trying to
well, it is kind of like a Deus Ex Machina in a way, or like one of these things where something comes in at the end to
say.
fix the problems, which is something that these superhero movies do a lot. And like the thing of no one ever staying dead or whatever, this whole
That
thing.
too.
So like,
That too. Yeah.
but I guess if that White Vision is still a thing,
Definitely.
that's how there could be another WandaVision. Because I guess if they did a sequel now, it'd just be Wanda or Scarlet Witch. But I guess they theoretically could get back together in some way over
They
it.
could. I mean, the end credit scene kind of hinted at the twins still being alive in the multiverse. So maybe they'll find a way to bring back the
Okay, how
original.
was that? Maybe I missed that too. And how did they
She
hint that?
like it was one of the twins who said, "Mom, help!" And then it snaps, and that's the end of the show. That's how
Yeah.
the end credit scene ended, essentially.
Maybe I missed what they were saying, mom, or I guess I must have not picked up on that.
Yeah, I mean it
I,
was quick. It was really quick. I mean you could just go back and watch that final scene just to see for yourself. But
I missed all
that's
this mom stuff with that. Agatha's mom. I wasn't picking up on any of these moms. Damn.
it's yeah, it's all good. Speaking of mom, before I get into this fully, but the fake Pietro had a tattoo on his arm, MOM, mom. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah,
They
that's
showed
a
it in one little frame. But speaking of Pietro, Ralph Boner, before I get into that,
rough boner.
that was the main problem I had with the show. All else, being considered. Before I get into that, like my final thoughts, my final criticisms. Why don't we talk about, because you mentioned earlier on you wanted to talk about each like commercial that Wanda had in.
Oh no, I don't necessarily want to talk. I don't
Oh,
remember all of them. I just think that was part of the whole TV show vibe, and like how each episode was going through like the decades. Like we're saying, the commercials were like that too.
mhm, mhm.
Which I liked, and I think they were doing references to things. Was it part of the thing trying to wake herself up or whatever? Like they were doing references to different. Like one of them mentioned Lagos, Nigeria, in
Yes.
some way, which is where her brother died, right?
No,
And
no,
there was
no.
like other little mentions of things.
Lagos was where she accidentally killed a bunch of innocent people. You remember the beginning of Captain America
Oh,
Civil
okay.
War? That was the city of Lagos where she tried to save people but accidentally ended up killing.
Oh,
That was in
where did
Lagos.
her brother die? Her brother died in Age of
Sokovia.
Ultron, or
Sokovia. I think their home
which is a fake
conversation
made
country.
up
Yeah.
place.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. But we don't need to talk more about the commercials.
Okay.
But I just thought it was an interesting element to the show.
Okay. Yeah.
But you want to talk about so like from my
Yeah.
perspective on this character, everyone was talking about it on Twitter and like social media, right? But like I recognize that it was the guy from X-Men who I kind of was vaguely aware is like the same character as Pietro, right?
Yeah. In the
But
X-Men movies,
but
he's
in the
called Peter
MCU,
in
it's not
X-Men.
because they didn't have the rights at that time to the X-Men
No, no, they
characters.
did. So Disney has the rights to Avengers characters, which Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver were. They were Avengers. Disney did not have the rights to X-Men. See, the thing about Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch, they're both X-Men characters and they're both Avengers characters. So that's
Did
where.
they call him Quicksilver in MCU though? I thought they didn't, or they only
No,
called
they
him that in
didn't.
the
I
X-Men.
don't think
Okay.
so. No.
But then so the other that guy, he's dead obviously, and played by a different actor.
Aaron Taylor
And
Johnson.
then and then So then by bringing this other actor in who plays the same essentially character in a different what do you call it, a different
Universe.
universe, yeah, but that's property, well, whatever, yeah, a different universe, they people were thinking that they're introducing like a multi-universe thing, or it's going to be something more than what it turned out to be,
Multiverse.
right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So what it ended up being was just kind of like a reference to like an inside joke kind of reference thing, I guess, or like a little
Well, more of like an outside joke, really, because it's not a joke any of
an
the
outside joke. Yeah.
characters would get. It was it was a joke from the studio, Marvel Studios, to the audience.
Yeah.
That's more of what it was.
They even say he says Kick Ass, I noticed, and then both those actors are in the movie Kick Ass,
Yes,
and
yes,
like the character of Kick Ass is played by the other guy, but
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah,
that was funny. Yeah.
yeah.
But then
That
it
was
didn't. Yeah,
it
it should
didn't.
have went somewhere better. I agree. Like if that's what you're saying, right?
Yeah, it should have. So here's the thing, and this is probably one of, if not the biggest fan theory complaint, is that they had the opportunity to introduce the multiverse with having this actor portray this character here, but they kind of wasted on basically a misdirection. Now, this show is all about misdirection, and I get that. And a lot of fans have come up with a lot of fan theories about other characters like Mephisto and Nightmare and all these and a bunch of other things. And that's cool. That's fine. Like those also ended up not being true. But this fan theory that came up with that this fan theory involving Evan Peters playing her fake brother, this is different than that because it's substantiated. An actual character shows up in the show being by an actor who plays the character of the same identity as her brother in a different universe, in an alternate universe. So it's not exactly the same kind of misdirection, because like the whole Agatha all along thing, right? There's a difference between Agatha as a villain misdirecting Wanda. Like there's a difference between the villain misdirecting the protagonist versus the studio misdirecting
The
the
audience.
audience. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a difference there, and that's why I really did not appreciate how it's not anything multiverse related, because when Wanda opens the door and sees Evan Peters as Quicksilver, whether it was played by Evan Peters or not, if it was played by a completely random new character, if it was Podrew in the role of fake PH of Ralph Boner, right? For Wanda, whether or not it's played by whoever it's being played by, other than Aaron Taylor Johnson, which I'm going to get into in a second, she wouldn't care. Let's pretend for a minute that that character was, he was plucked from his home universe and pulled into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and he's there. He's stuck in an alternate reality, and that's what's revealed by the end of it. By the end of it, it's not like Wanda would care because
Yeah, she wouldn't know,
yeah,
right?
it's
Like,
still he's still not her brother. The audience would care, like I would care, because that's setting up the multiverse. And it doesn't necessarily mean, like, Disney does have a movie coming out called Mutants, which is their reboot of X-Men and all that stuff, which is fine. Just because they involve a previous actor from a previous franchise doesn't necessarily mean they have to incorporate everything from that universe. They could have just done this. They could have just brought back this actor, had him playing the character he has been playing, just to show the audience that yes, the multiverse is coming, and that Fox X-Men universe is part of this multiverse. They could have done simply that instead of, they could have done that instead of using this character basically for nothing, for shock value, essentially a shock value that doesn't really pay off, in my opinion. Um,
yeah.
so a lot of
Well,
people, yeah, go ahead.
well, I was just gonna say, yeah, I think I didn't even know that much stuff about the small diverse or whatever you're talking about, but like, and I wouldn't have necessarily cared if they did that. But I agree, it didn't completely pay off still, because I still think they should have done something more with the character at the
Yeah,
end,
yeah. So
like than just be another guy from the town or whatever.
yeah, yeah. Like
Yeah.
it's not like Agatha is a fourth wall breaking character like Deadpool. Have you seen the Deadpool movies?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So one of the key things about Deadpool is that he breaks the fourth wall. He knows he's a comic book character, so he talks to the audience about, meta
Right,
jokes.
right, right.
Agatha's not that type of character. It's not like Agatha knows she's in a TV show. It's not like she knows that her brother is is played by a different actor in a different alternate universe, and brought this person who looks like him from a different universe to fuck with the audience. You know, Agatha's not that type of person. You know, so none of that played in. This was just the studio bringing this in to fuck with the audience, and that wasn't
Yeah.
necessary. And the reason I feel like that's not necessary is for a few reasons. They interviewed the director of WandaVision for this, Shackman, the gentleman's last name is. He one thing I do gotta point out there, he was kind of getting harassed. Like he was getting texts from unknown numbers saying, "Oh, why would you do that? Why would you, do the Mandarin Iron Man 3 twist again?" He shouldn't, like, that's going a little bit.
He didn't write the show, right? He just directed it.
He
It
directed
doesn't
it,
make
yeah, but
sense. Yeah. It's
he
not
was
his decision.
well,
Maybe he's a producer too, I guess, but yeah.
I'm just saying, like, my main point about him like getting hit up by random people, like that's going a little bit too far. You can't be harassing people for like TV shows and stuff. But he went on to explain that, have you seen Iron Man 3 or no?
Yeah, I don't really remember it that well, but I believe I have seen it. It
It's a,
was like Ben Kingsley, right, as playing
yeah,
the guy, and it was a fake out.
exactly. He
People didn't like that. Yeah.
he went on to say, Shackman went on to say that the Mandarin twist, the fake out, was his favorite part of the movie. But the thing is, that fake out polarized fans so much that Marvel Studios decided to retcon it and to hint
They
that
did.
there is a real Mandarin somewhere in this universe, and he is going to be featured as a villain in a future MCU movie, despite the fact that Iron Man 3 was $1 billion movie, despite the fact that it has almost an 80% of Rotten Tomatoes. For all intents and purposes, it was a very successful movie. Disney did not have to retcon it, but they did. Well, they're
Because of the
going to.
fans.
Yeah, for the fans, yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I appreciate that they actually did that. And I would appreciate, they still have time. They have the opportunity to retcon Ralph Bohner into being Peter Maximoff.
Yeah, see, I don't know. I can't really go down this path with you. I don't think. I don't necessarily like this idea that that based on fan, like you're gonna retcon things based on fan reaction, because like even if I don't like something in a movie, at least what Iron Man 3 did was different. Like I like things when they're more different still. If all this Marvel stuff becomes so homogenized and the same, or it's all just dictated by the fans, like I feel like that's gonna leave less room for more interesting things to happen. People are gonna take less risks, the creators. So like I don't really like this idea, I gotta say. I don't think.
Well, I think it goes both ways. Like, yes, it's the writer's show. They're the ones telling the story. They get full reign of telling the story they want to tell. But at the same time, they're doing, it's business, right? They're doing it for entertainment. They're doing it to make money. And if the audience really cares about it, if they're that attached to it, then and you do something that polarizes them, you should at least take it into consideration, which they did with the Mandarin. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
I think Chris Stuckman explained it best, and I asked you off the record to check out like part of his review, because
Yeah,
his
which I did,
statement
yeah.
echoes how I felt about it, because he didn't look into fan theories. That's the thing. He said, fan theories aside, you're looking at a fan favorite actor playing a fan favorite character in a Marvel show. So he's not gonna blame fans for being disappointed. And that's the thing. This fan theory is different from all the rest of them, because this was substantiated by an actual person, an actual character showing up in the story. So um I would say Quicksilver and Nightcrawler are my two favorite X-Men, actually, and this really kind of ruined part of the show. I still enjoyed WandaVision. I still really liked the show, but this was the worst part of it to me, in my opinion, is the whole Ralph Ralph Boner thing.
Yeah.
But like I said, if Disney chooses to, they could retcon it. You know what would be really cool? I mean, before I explain this, let me explain to you why Aaron Taylor Johnson is also still relevant here. Shackman also said they considered bringing back Aaron Taylor Johnson, who was the Quicksilver that died in Age of Ultron.
Right.
They were thinking of bringing him back and having him be like like a reanimated corpse controlled by Agatha to fuck with Wanda. The reason they didn't do that is because they already had a loved one brought back to life in the form of Vision, and that's why they didn't.
Yeah. Also, wouldn't his body be like decomposed by now, basically, or like it would be a couple of years ago at this
Yeah,
point, right?
but Agatha's a witch. She could make it so that he doesn't look like
Oh
her,
yeah, I guess
you
so.
know. And to what I'm trying to tell you is I don't really buy that as an excuse, because Vision coming back, that's all Wanda's doing. Like, Wanda's aware that she's the one who brought Vision back. If she sees her actual brother at the doorway, she's gonna be confused. She's gonna be totally confused and mind blown. So because it's not her doing it, so I don't really buy, or I you know I didn't accept really
Yeah,
the
I
answer.
guess
Yeah,
I guess that wouldn't work with the theme they're going for because it was supposed to be like they didn't want something to just be snapping her out of it at that point.
I don't think. Well, that's the thing. I don't think she would have been snapped out of it if she saw her dead brother at the door. She would be mind blown. Like, what is going on here? I'm not fully in control. There's definitely
But
something
she
else.
still thinks it's her brother, like even though it's not, obviously not.
Agatha, yeah, Agatha
Or she
says,
goes along with it, saying
yeah.
like she doesn't recognize him at first, but when he says he's her brother, she just believes it, right?
She believes it, and Agatha says, "Oh, you were so deep in your own grief that you just accepted this random person as your brother." She says something along the lines of
Yeah,
that. I think that's what Agatha says, but
yeah,
it would be perceived totally differently from the audience. They could
yeah.
have there were three different things they could have done. They could have cast a completely different actor. They could have brought back Aaron Taylor Johnson, and they could have brought Evan Peters, which the third choice number three is what they
To
did.
me, that's the most interesting for sure. But then, yeah, they do have to do something more with it, I
Yeah, but
guess.
they didn't. That's what ruined
Yeah,
it for me.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah. It
that's
was it was disappointing ending it that way. I didn't affect me as much as you. It sounds like, but I was disappointed as well a little bit.
okay. Yeah.
I have heard, this is just a completely unsubstantiated rumor, I guess, but I have heard that the guy kick ass, what's his name, Johnson,
Aaron Taylor Johnson, yeah.
like the actor is like hard to work with apparently.
Oh.
People have said so that might have been part of it too. Like they
Um
didn't want to work with him anymore or whatever.
well,
But yeah,
that's not the reason why he was killed off in Avengers Age of Ultron. In Avengers
no.
yeah.
But I have heard that
Yeah. So
possibly be
that
something.
was
Yeah,
no, that was a rights thing. Like uh
yeah.
Fox was telling Disney, like, look, if you want to have Quicksilver in the movie, you can't call him an Avenger, and you can't do this and this. That's why they had to kill him off before he could become part of the Avengers team.
Mhm.
That's basically why he was killed off at that point. But
Yeah. I wasn't implying that's why they killed him off in that movie. I'm just saying that's something I've heard. Yeah.
I think what
Um,
would be cool though in the future, like, yeah, I think you're right. I'm more disappointed about this than you are, but I think if Disney did decide to bring Quicksilver the character back, what a cool thing they could do is I think you and I can also agree that Scarlet Witch is more powerful by the end of WandaVision than she was in Age of Ultron, right? She's considerably more powerful.
that's certainly what they seem to be implying, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that also means that Quicksilver in Age of Ultron was not at his full potential. And if you've seen the X-Men movies, you know that the Evan Peters version is way faster. So I think
Yeah.
if they did want to retcon Ralph Bohner into being the actual Peter Maximoff from the X-Men universe, they could do this. They could do a multiverse story in some movie and have the two Quicksilvers meet, bring the old one back, and the Fox Quicksilver helps the Aaron Taylor Johnson Quicksilver unlock his full potential.
Mhm.
Then we get a kick-ass scene of both Quicksilvers doing the thing. That'd be cool.
Yeah. Well, what if, I mean, could they just like take Boner and just give him power somehow? They could figure out some way to do that and just like make him the new Quicksilver, just this random kid, this guy. Like maybe it's something like I had this power from Wanda at the time or from however he got it. Now it's like
I
still here in some way, and now it's getting amplified by some other thing. Like, and then he just becomes
um,
like the new.
it's
And I
better.
think it just use the same actor. Then.
It's better. It's better than having him just be Ralph Boner. That's for sure. Even if they do that, I'll still like that more than him being an actor who was only mind controlled by Agatha. I'm just saying. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but I do think also, like you're saying with these powers, clearly there's way more of a ceiling on a power of super speed than something like Wanda has.
Yeah.
So I don't
But
know how much they could grow. Like,
there is more of a ceiling to it. But I mean, Quicksilver was killed in Age of Ultron by bullets. Quicksilver in the X-Men movies was so fast that he was
speeding
stopping
faster than a
bullets.
speeding bullet. Right? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He saved like 30 different people in 30 yeah in Apocalypse when the mansion was blowing up. So yeah, he's definitely faster. He's more powerful, and that's why I think like a multiverse thing. If they ever wanted to do it, they could. Disney could do that. I think.
I'm sure they're not leaving any money on the table here. So we'll see it at 2028 or something, 2029.
Oh man. Oh god. But yeah, dude. So that pretty
Yeah,
much
well,
wraps.
we've been for a while. Yeah, I think we covered a lot here. It
Yeah, we
seems like,
did. We did. We talked about a lot of it. Overall, like despite parts that I really didn't like about the show, I still enjoyed it. I liked it a lot.
And this was the first show. Basically, this was the first MCU show, right? I'm not wrong about that, am I?
So
Or they had
technically,
Agents of Shield or whatever, I guess. But does that count? Or like,
Agent, well, mostly no, but yes at the same time. Because if you saw Avengers Endgame, remember when Tony Stark went back to like the 70s and he saw his father, and there was that butler Jarvis. That the actor who portrays Jarvis, I'm sorry, the name of the actor is slipping my mind, but he played Jarvis in Agents of Shield or Agent Carter, one of those two shows. So I guess Agents of Shield
okay.
counts maybe, but there were also the Netflix MCU shows, which
Oh, right, like Daredevil and
yeah,
stuff. Yeah.
I was about
Well, this
to.
is the first Disney Plus one. Is maybe what I was thinking.
This is the first Marvel Studios TV show, like the same studio that made
Oh, okay, okay, that's what it
was
is.
in charge. Yeah, was in charge of this show, and I was just about to bring up the Netflix MCU shows because I never watched the ABC ones like Agents of Shield, Agent Carter. I never saw either of those. Fox Studios also had a show set in the X-Men universe called Legion. Never saw that either, but it's supposed to be pretty good.
Oh, I did see that.
You
That
did see
was
that?
good. Yeah.
That's good. Cool.
Yeah, it's very weird. Like it's that. It's definitely. I could definitely see a lot of like MCU fans probably wouldn't be into it. It's
Uh,
more of like an RD type of show, or it's like more psychological and all this stuff. Yeah, it's by the same creator of the show Fargo, which is another one of my favorite shows.
oh, yeah, I
So
heard that's a good show. I don't know much about it, but I heard that's a good show.
yeah, so like Legion is like it kind of takes place in an alternate reality from like the X-Men that you normally see.
Really? Oh, I thought it
But
was part of that
this
universe. Yeah.
well, I think it is at least. And this in this universe, Legion is the son of Professor X.
Oh, okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
That is actually really interesting. I don't think they explore that at all in the X-Men movies, actually.
No, that's why I think it's a different timeline or something like
Mhm.
that. And also even like the stuff like it's set in like modern day, but like some of the fashions like from the 70s, you can't really tell what's going on. Like it's not like the real world. It's very mind bending type of show. Um, Aubrey Plaza's on it. She's really great in that. Um, and so is the guy who plays Legion,
I
the main
wonder if they put
character.
it on Hulu or something since
I believe it is. Yeah, I believe it is.
that makes
Yeah.
sense. But yeah, I was bringing up the other Marvel shows because I was just for a minute gonna compare WandaVision to them because at the end of the day, this is a TV show. It's a Marvel superhero TV show. It's a Marvel show. So I
Mhm.
was just for a minute gonna compare this and how it stacks up to the rest of the TV shows. I'm not really gonna compare it to the movies because movies and TV they're kind of a separate medium, despite the fact that you're watching people acting on a screen. But so for that, I'm just gonna compare it to the shows. Compared to, I would say Daredevil, which is the best live action Marvel show. WandaVision is not as good as that, but it's still a really really good show. Like to rank it, I would still say Daredevil is the best amongst them. I don't know if you've seen any of the Netflix.
See, I definitely wouldn't agree. I think I started watching Daredevil and like halfway through the first season, I just didn't
You
continue.
didn't
I
like
didn't
it?
like it
Okay,
that much.
yeah,
Yeah. I saw Jessica Jones the first whole season, I believe. I think I saw the Luke Cage first whole season.
same.
And that might be about it. I liked those ones a little bit better than Daredevil, but not enough to continue on to like another. Did they make season twos of both of those shows? I don't even
There was a
remember.
season 2 and 3 of Jessica Jones. I don't know if there was a
Yeah.
season 3 of Luke Cage though.
At least Jessica Jones was the villain was interesting. I thought like it was a little more interesting to me, but yeah, all of those shows had a similar vibe to me where I think part of it is the production value. I think in something like WandaVision is just way higher.
Okay,
The
yeah, I
look of
mean,
it,
there's
those other ones felt more of like a standard TV show to me, like too repetitive type of
well,
story, like things. Yeah,
there was also a higher budget to WandaVision, just because it's
yeah, for
Marvel
sure.
Studios. There was like 71. I think the budget was
No, it's
70,
like A-list actors essentially,
and that
or
too. Yeah,
or
TV and like movie
uh,
stars in this, but yeah. So okay, that's fair. But for me, because I really really liked Daredevil, I would put this
yeah, you
next
like
to it.
that
So
one
you
better.
would you say WandaVision is like the best of the Marvel shows then?
Yeah, like I said, I haven't seen enough to really have it too, my opinion, mean too much of anything. But I think it was definitely of what I've seen. Yeah, I definitely liked it the best. Yeah,
Okay,
and
well,
it largely does come down to the two things I mostly liked a lot were the all the television references I liked were clever, and I just like that because I love TV. I like um, I've just always liked TV a lot. And I like that whole. I thought it was a good gimmick, essentially, or a good
mhm.
thing. And then the study of like the grief and all that, it was a little more interesting than a typical superhero setup.
I agree with you on all those points. Like WandaVision had all that going forward. It's just the
And I like Elizabeth Olsen. Like, I mean, hey,
yeah.
she she ain't bad to look at for 9
Oh
episodes.
man.
Her and that Halloween outfit was doing it for me. I won't lie.
Speaking of, what did you think of like the Scarlet Witch costume? Because a lot of people really
That was like what her classic thing looks like. It was a little silly looking.
no,
Like
not
on
not from
the
the Halloween.
Halloween costume thing
No,
was
yeah,
funny because it's like a cheesy looking Halloween
yeah.
costume.
I mean
But the
that was
actual thing, I don't know. It's fine.
okay. Yeah. So yeah, the Halloween episode was just like a kind of like an Easter egg reference to what her character looked like exactly in the comics, and then the final episode
Yeah,
with her
I was
new
getting
suit
that.
is like a
Yeah.
modernized like version
Mhm.
of it. But
It's so funny. I didn't mention this either with the TV show stuff. I kind of didn't even really think about it till now, but it's very funny that like the actress's older sisters are
yeah,
Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen,
yeah,
who are like some of the most famous TV stars of like the 90s.
they were.
And like
Yeah.
now she's on the show that's referencing like stuff like that. It's kind of funny.
I mean, I would
Um,
say she's been more. Yeah. That's that.
oh, she's a way better actor. They don't even act anymore or anything. Like she's like her career is just interesting in general, I think,
Yeah.
but it's funny like to think about it like that too. Yeah.
That's yeah. New Rockstars talked about that in the episode 8 break, not the episode 8 breakdown. Whichever episode they kind of emulated the Full House references. I think like New
Mhm.
Rockstars was talking about how it's ironic that Mary Kate and Ashley were actresses like child actresses in that show too. But
Yeah.
okay, so we talked for a while. I think I've pretty much said almost everything in however long it's been. Probably over an hour that we talked about this.
Oh no, it's
Going
almost 2 hours now, I
Oh
think.
shit. Oh my god. I might just put this off raw and not even edit it. But going
Maybe
into
break it up into 2 sections or something.
maybe
Could
um
edit this part what we're talking about.
possibly. We'll see. But going into closing statements and ratings, again, I liked the show a lot. The pacing of the final episode and how they handled the villain, like setting up the villains, were my complaints. My biggest complaint is of course Ralph Boner. With there have been too many recent fake outs about the multiverse. There was the whole, I don't know, you didn't see Spider-Man Far From Home, but there was a multiverse fake out there because the main villain claimed to be from the multiverse, a different Earth. There's also Marvel themselves saying that this movie ties into Doctor Strange, the Multiverse of Madness, and the next Spider-Man movie, which is titled No Way Home, which has been heavily implied to have multiverse elements in it because they're bringing back actors from previous Spider-Man movies, like Alfred Molina, who played Doctor Octopus in Spider-Man 2, Jamie
Yeah.
Foxx, who played Electro in The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Like they're heavily implying that there might be a multiverse element there. Them saying that this
Interesting.
show like directly ties into that, and then not doing anything multiverse related with the whole Ralph Boner thing, that's just setting up the audience for disappointment and no payoff. That was the major blow for me. But despite that, but despite
Major
that,
blow. You're so offended by it.
oh my god.
It
But no,
personally offended you.
but I still really like the show, and I would recommend it. It's not, all I'm saying is that it's not perfect. Like
Yeah.
nothing is immune to
Oh.
criticism. I still really liked it, so I would give it a rating as a TV show, an 8.5 out of 10.
You normally rate things like this at the end of all your reviews?
Yeah, I do. You don't have to if you
Okay.
don't, but
No, I'm just revealing that I don't listen to your reviews, but
oh no, I didn't even think about that, but I'm gonna cry.
oh, I shouldn't have said it. No, no. I yeah, so like it's out of 10.
Yeah.
And it's just based on versus all other TV shows are just based on itself, like
No,
what it
just
was
based
trying
on
to do.
how much I like it.
Okay, based on how you liked it. Yeah, I'll give it an 8 out of 10 for myself.
Oh,
Did you say what did you say? 8, 8.5?
I said 8.5. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll give it an 8. I'll
Okay,
give it an 8.
that's fair. So it's
I
still
look
really
forward to watching it every week for
same.
sure.
Same. Yeah. Okay. So,
Um,
and you would recommend this to not just comic book fans, but just to people who like.
I think so. If you have an appreciation for even not just classic TV, but like the history of TV, how it's progressed, for sure. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Same. And I am this doesn't get me more excited for Falcon and the Winter Soldier, because like I told you in the beginning of this, because the main reason I was watching this was due to it being the next part of the MCU. I was gonna
Mhm.
watch the Falcon and the Winter Soldier anyway, but people like you, it sounds like there could be others out there who are more excited.
Yeah, that's got me a little more
Yeah,
interested to see what they're gonna do next. Yeah, with this TV show thing.
awesome.
Even though I guess those two characters don't really interest me all that much, but we'll see what they. I mean, like you said, it's not like Wanda and Vision were that interesting to me either necessarily. So who knows? Yeah.
Yeah.
You can,
Well, they'll find a way. I mean, they got
yeah.
people hooked here. I'm sure they'll get people hooked there
So
as
I know
well.
we're wrapping this up, but what do you think? Do you have any insight as to what type of show it's going to be? Like, so WandaVision was like the type of show we talked about. That was the hook, this TV thing and all that. You know, and like even like some of the individual Marvel movies, like that Captain America one is more of like a spy thriller, and then other movies are, you know, Guardians of the Galaxy is more of like a sci-fi uh, fantasy, whatever. Like, do you know anything about what this new show is going to be, like the tone of it or the vibe?
The only thing I could say is that it's probably going to be more along the lines of what you're used to watching a Marvel movie. You know, this
Got it.
you found WandaVision to be more out of the ordinary in terms of,
More unique, yeah.
yeah, based on
Yeah.
the trailer. Just based on the trailer, it looks like it's going to be more action oriented, like character oriented as well, but more so like about superhero comic book action. So yeah,
Okay.
that's the only insight.
Well, I'll definitely give the first episode a watch at the very least.
Awesome. All right, you have Disney Plus. I mean, I think you need Disney Plus in order to.
Yeah, that's what I was watching this on. I mean, my brother got it, and they just gave the password to our whole family, so we're all
Very
watching
good.
the same one,
Yeah.
as it goes these days.
Yeah. Well, speaking of which, Netflix is kind of cracking down on people sharing passwords or something. That's what I read like this morning or something.
Whatever. I mean, Netflix hasn't had much I've been interested in lately, anyway.
Mm, okay. Well, I did watch this one show called Cobra Kai. Like I binged it in the beginning of the year, like
Yeah,
season.
I heard that's popular,
I have my own
yeah,
thoughts on
based
that,
on
but
Karate Kid. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's kind of like a sequel to Karate Kid, not just based on it, but yeah. All right. Yeah, that's pretty much all I got for you, man. Is there, anything else that you want to talk about before we say goodbye forever?
No, I think that'll about do it. Hey, if you like, on my YouTube channel, I do, like Farhad mentioned at the beginning, I do reactions. I mostly do animated shows. So every Monday I put out an anime. I do an anime series, you know, at least a season or the whole series of it. Right now I'm doing My Hero Academia. On Tuesdays I do a cartoon, a Western style cartoon. Right now I'm doing Ben 10. And I'm also doing Infinity Train on just random days, which is another animated show that's shorter. So if any of that sounds interesting to you, check out Drew's Views. I have other shows I've done in the past too. Steven Universe being one of my more popular ones. Yeah, and Genesis Evangelion for anime. So yeah, check it out.
Cool. Your content is daily, right? Like every day you post a new video.
No, it's Monday. It's every Monday, every Tuesday, and then most weeks I have a third video at some point during the week.
Got it. Got
So
it. Okay.
two to three uploads a week consistently. Yeah.
Yeah, that's still, yeah, that's a decent amount of weekly new content. So you
Oh
get
yeah,
your.
I'm working hard at. It's a lot of work.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, I appreciate you setting aside some time to, work with me on this review of WandaVision. So thank you
Absolutely,
for
man. It was fun. Thanks.
So for those of you who have tuned in to listen, thank you for listening to us go on about WandaVision for however many hours it's been. What did you say? It was 2 hours we've been going on?
Yeah, clip this out and put it at the beginning
Okay.
so they can hear my plug before they
Oh.
shut it off 5 minutes in.
So yeah, that's been it. You've been listening to Farhad Targaryen and
Podrew.
So thank you all again for tuning in, and catch us again on the next review.
Peace.
Where's this stop recording?